over to you.
All right. Well, good afternoon, everybody. It's nice to sort of be in Dothan today. It's one of my favorite places to come because I can get lost here intelligently, and now I can't even do that. I may forget before we're done. All right. If you would, please make sure that you're muted. We're gonna touch on a subject that has come to the forefront of businesses and leadership for quite some time. It's leadership blind spots. And when I first heard this, I went, well, you know, we cover everything. What more can there be? I don't know if you've heard of the term leadership blind spots, but it's really there for us to understand that there are certain things that we see or we think we're doing that our people don't see when we're dealing with our teams. So we're gonna deal with that today. What I'd like to do first and foremost, though, is maybe just before we begin, is let's get some key focus on what we're dealing with here. We were part of, and there are several studies that were done on this topic. And the study results talk about cross-cultural leadership, and it's to identify key leadership characteristics that motivate and inspire people here in the U.S. and around the world. So when we talk about these topics today, when we talk about the numbers and what the studies show, you have two to look at. The first is that we'll be looking at the worldwide numbers, and we also have numbers for what it looks like here in the United States, so you have a basis for comparison. We're also going to explore our potential blind spots as leaders and consider perceptions of our own leadership and ways we can be more effective in our relationship with the people that we work with. We're really looking for how can we better get a return on investment from our team each and every day. Now, we've all heard about employee engagement, right? That's been a hot topic for some time. Carnegie was also part of a study, did some studies on that as well. And we've all heard about how important it is and so on and so forth. What this study is going to talk about and what the information we're going to share with you today really does is it narrows it down to really some areas that will make it so important for us. So we want to make sure that we've got those as we go forward.
You say I'm supposed to come in? Hey, David, we can't hear you.
Oh, there we go. For those of you who don't usually, have not done a lot of these, don't push the mute button. Just don't. What we've discovered over time is that Deloitte in 2015 did a study on leadership, and what their survey was HR and business leaders. They wanted to know what they discovered, what they said was the most important challenge, and 86% of them said it was the actual getting good leadership. We've heard that before, right? Good leadership. Is there good leadership out there? The next follow-up question was, how's your pipeline? How are you doing to develop your leadership, your strong leadership? What are you doing to increase and ensure that the next set of leaders that come in are going to be able to pick up and run right along with that? And most of them said, only about 6% of them said they have strong leadership in the pipeline. So our first issue that we have to deal with in anything with our employees and the people that we work with is the aspect of they want it. Leadership management wants it, but they're not doing a lot to develop it. So your challenge first and foremost is not only how are you as a leader, but also what are you doing to replace yourself? And I know it's, you know, that's never a good topic to do, but what are you doing to replace yourself? Do you have the same quality type people coming in to take over? You know, it's the old joke that well, it was a joke because I was in sales and we laughed at it. But there's the old statement that in sales, the sales manager was ultimately the best salesperson, and so they would make him the new manager, and then they couldn't figure out, well, sales failed because he was now, they'd taken one out and they didn't replace him with somebody who could carry the load as much as they did. Part of our engagement challenge came up with this: only 24% of employees are satisfied with their current job. Let that think in for a minute. And 45% of employees want to leave in the next year. Those are rather frightening statistics that come from this study. So how does leadership impact engagement? Because we were talking about that as we began today. So let's take a moment to look at that. The study that we did was we asked participants to do some things, to ask some questions about satisfaction first and foremost. Okay, and we've always broken it down. We hear about fully engaged and disengaged employees. We know that a fully engaged employee is somebody who understands the mission, the purpose, and the vision of the company, and has taken it on and understands it wholeheartedly. A disengaged person is just doing the bare minimum to get their job done. And again, I always say this, is please don't start suddenly thinking about all the people on your job and go, well, that's disengaged, that's disengaged, that's disengaged. But that's the type of person that we're looking at. They're just there for the paycheck. They're just going to do the bare minimum. They're not going to do a whole lot much more than that. And they'll trample you to death if you stand in front of the door when it's time to leave. So we have those kind of people. So the question then comes up of employees who are very satisfied with their immediate supervisor. If you say that you're fully engaged, would you agree with that statement? And what we found is that 66% of fully engaged people are fully engaged employees are very satisfied with their immediate supervisor. That's the frontline person. That's the person that they report to directly all the time. And the interesting thing about this is that when you ask disengaged people, 13% of disengaged people said they were satisfied, which kind of surprised me. Then when you take it and you turn it and flip it to those who are when you ask the question about satisfied employees, you discover that 60% of fully engaged people are very satisfied with their senior leadership. That's the level up, that's the top level. And only 5% of fully disengaged people. So the impact of, you can see that there's an impact at the frontline manager. The immediate supervisor has a real impact in that not only is their fully engaged people more satisfied, so are their disengaged people. They don't have a problem with their managers. The sad part is that it's not a full 100% of fully engaged people. So that becomes the next question on this. All right. The other aspect of this that we look at is that you have a situation where 50% of employees say they don't quit their jobs, they quit their managers. We've heard that before. There's nothing surprising in that. That's been a staple in for a long time. And if you think back at previous jobs, did you take it because of pay or promotion, or did you take it because you were tired of what was going on? You weren't happy with the person who was your manager, your leader, and whatnot that way. We've promoted that in Carnegie for a long time, that people don't quit companies, they quit managers. So the manager, it reinforces an age-old statement that managers have an impact on turnover. And if they're not good and they're not effective, that's what happens. Okay? So we have that to look at. So what is an effective leader? I want you to stop and think for a minute, and we'll have a little give and take nearer the end, because there's a lot of statistics here, and I get lost in numbers real easy. So we don't want to do that. So I want you to think for a moment of what was a characteristic that made them effective or good. Think of a leader that you respected. What made them effective or good? Okay? And how did they motivate or inspire you? That's the first question you have to think back on. What were the role models that you have as a manager and as a leader? What were your role models? Okay? So we get that. What are those things that they look like? Then an ineffective leader is they didn't bring out the best in you. What characteristics made them ineffective? Why didn't they motivate you? What was missing from them? So you have two little assignments here before we end. Is an effective leader, what characteristics did you like there that they had that brought out the best in you? And then an ineffective one, why didn't they motivate you? All right. So we have those issues to deal with. We want to increase employee motivation and business results. We need to provide employees with more effective leaders. It's going to be the constant thread throughout this. It doesn't mean that you're doing a bad job or that your managers are doing a bad job right now. It means that they have to get better at what they do. And on our statistics as we go forward are going to share that a little bit more. So don't think that as we go through this, we're saying, you're all here because you're bad managers. Well, you wouldn't be here if you were bad managers. You'd be someplace else. You'd be, I don't know, wandering the streets of Dothan aimlessly. I don't know. But it's that kind of a thing that we want to look at. So again, let me emphasize, we're not saying you're doing anything bad. We want you to think about it and say, how can I get better? Okay? So let's talk a little bit about the research that we have to do and what that was all about. Our objectives in the research from Dale Carnegie was first and foremost to uncover critical leadership behaviors. What do leaders do? Okay. Then we wanted to compare the effects of leadership characteristics on motivation across cultures. I mean, this got to the point where you looked at it and they're discovering that, like in Europe and even in North America, the work ethics and the characteristics of motivation culturally change whether you're, even to the point with which state you're in. And then we were going to we looked at to reveal gaps between the importance of behavior and performance leaders. So what do they want? What are the expectations that we should have? And where's the reality in it? Okay. So let's take a look at some of the way we did it. Carnegie was very methodical. I think that's the right word for it. They were very methodical. Oh God, even in this day and age with all this technology, English still becomes a second language for me. I'm in trouble. First of all, it was done online. They asked 3,300 respondents. They covered 4 regions and 14 countries. And if you're really into it, I can go minutia. I can give you those countries, but I won't right now. So they were there to deal with that. It was full-time. They targeted full-time employees, 21 years or older. Okay, so you have a nice mix of brand new employees versus long-term employees. And we looked at all levels of industry and company sizes. Early on when we started talking about employee engagement, a lot of the companies that we used were real mega companies. This one looked at all different size companies and how they would react to what's going on. So all of those are pretty good. So we're really pleased about those kind of things. So we have those. Then what we did is we asked our questions were built in a certain way. First of all, they were asked to select among a pair of leadership characteristics most likely to inspire you. Okay. And again, it wasn't one of those things where this is a good characteristic and this is a bad characteristic. It was that kind of a thing. Then we asked them to identify leadership behaviors that impact motivation most and indicate how often your own supervisor exhibits those behaviors. That's what we refer to as the gap analysis. I'm learning so much about statistics and all of this stuff. And the last one was to tell you your likelihood of satisfaction and the likelihood that you would stay. Because again, that's one of those critical things. If you've got a lot of turnover, you have to stop and ask yourself why. Okay, and the simple answer is the other guy's paying too much, or the other guy's a better guy to work for. So we want to look at it in those things. So let's go through and talk a little bit about our findings and how that works. First of all, the motivational trade-off when it comes to behavioral preferences. All right, and go ahead and sort of in your mind answer this question yourself. And the first question was, would you pick somebody, are you looking for somebody who gives praise and honest appreciation for the work you do, or somebody who just focuses on getting the job done? And you can see up there that worldwide, 76% of respondents said they want somebody who will give them praise and honest appreciation versus 24% that said they wanted somebody who focused in on the job, getting the job done. Okay. In the United States, 74% said they want somebody who gives honest appreciation, and 26% focus in on getting the job done. So this is the kind of way it was placed. And again, we're talking about, these are two basic behaviors that we admire in a manager. Managers obviously should do it all. I like to joke that as soon as you become a manager, they put targets on you and you've become omnipotent. You know everything that needs to be known. You can answer any question from the simple to the most complex. And you can do that right from the first day that you become the manager. With no problems whatsoever. Okay, so that's the first thing that we noticed. In another one, we asked, admits their own shortfalls before criticizing others, or demonstrating a level of self-confidence and self-motivation. So there were those types of questions asked. Worldwide, 63% of the respondents said that they want somebody who admits their own shortfalls before criticizing others versus 37% for the other one. Does that make sense? In the United States, 68% of employees and people surveyed in this are saying they want somebody who admits their own shortfalls before criticizing others. I think that's a huge number, and I think it says a lot about what our employees are looking for. And only 32% said they wanted the self-reliant and self-assured. Okay? Then the next aspect of this is we took and we looked at 3 key areas that were consistently ranked high. And of those in the United States, the number one was they want managers and leaders who truly listen. And it's not just nodding your head while somebody's there or not doing something else. It's truly listening to what people have to say. And at the same time, they want somebody who's going to respect opinions. When I give you my opinion, it's not to poo-poo it or say, well, that's, you're an idiot. Oh no, that would be me. To deal with that. And then the third level on that is ask for sincere appreciation, or give sincere appreciation. And we're not talking, and again, with sincere appreciation, we're not talking about people saying, boy, look, I see you got a new car, good for you. Or boy, that's a new pair of shoes, or a new haircut, or a new tie, assuming you wear ties, or those kind of things. It's talking about those traits that are valued within the company. It's those traits that they see in you that are make you a valuable employee, or make our others a valuable employee. Worldwide, you'll notice that worldwide, when you compare the United States and worldwide, there's not a lot of difference in what employees want. It's just the ranking of what they feel is most important. In a worldwide situation, respect opinions comes first. Then it's sincere appreciation. And then it's followed by truly listening. But in all cases, we notice that these 3 areas are very, very important to workers. So the question then becomes, how are you doing, or how is your management doing at meeting those criteria? I'll give you a minute to think. All right, let's talk about the gap, because that's an important aspect of it. The gap basically tells us that what this is the expectation that people, our workers want. We want this, but what are they getting? What are managers delivering? Okay, so that's our next step. And I did it again. Don't hit the mute button. So our next aspect on this is here's the way it works. The blue is what the employee wants, and the purple is what the supervisor sometimes or always portrays. And as you can see in this, that there's a gap a huge gap in 3 areas there, and sort of a more moderate gap in some of the other areas. First and foremost, when it comes to sincere appreciation, there's a gap between what's actually happening and what's not happening, and what the employee expects based upon the rankings that goes on there. The same is true in truly listening, and the same is true in admits when they're wrong. All along this area for all regions, there's a huge gap, but the top 3 are appreciation, listening, and admitting that they're wrong. Those areas are ranked high as what people wanted, and they're not seeing it from their managers, okay? They're not seeing it from their leaders. The next one is performance, and how are they doing it? And again, we see the exact same thing. We see the closest one actually is where they don't expect their leaders to call them by their name, but their managers and leaders overperform that way. The other ones, again, have that gap of what they're seeing versus the reality. And we have to think about that, because that is the blind spots. What we think we're doing and what our direct reports and our coworkers are seeing are 2 different things. And we have to figure out a way to branch that gap. All right. When leaders exhibit the most important behavior, satisfaction is at 65%. And 27% are likely to stay in their jobs for 2 years or more. When we practice those. So it cuts down on our turnover rate. So let's get into this a little bit more. There's external reality, and then there's internal reality. External reality is our honesty with others. How honest are we appear to others? It's what they see each and every day. The internal is that we're true to ourselves. When we talk to managers, we ask them to develop and get an idea of what are their core values. What are the key values that they want to have or that they feel are important to them. And we do that, and then we ask the questions, what would it mean if your boss asked you to violate your values? And then what would be the reaction of an employee if you asked them to violate their values? So that internal reliability is that aspect for us to really figure out where am I, who am I, and why am I asking people to do certain things. Okay. Externally reliable is dependable. They say what they mean and mean what they say. People can count on them. They are unwavering. People don't worry that they are going dishonest with themselves or others. Okay, so it's that kind of a position. That's external reliability. Okay, and again, one of these aspects of it is in the United States, 46% of respondents to our said that they're always reliable. That in Europe it's 30%, which gives us an idea of what's going on around the world. Then 44% said sometimes, which should be a flag that if you're ranked, if you fall into that sometimes category, it means you're not always being true and you're not portraying that your values and you're not portraying what you believe and what you hold dear to other people. And then 11% of Americans say, or the survey said, rarely or never, which is really sad. The other sad part about it is from our standpoint is, or from my standpoint is 64% or 54% are not dealing with it in terms of we're doing this on a regular basis. It always happens. Internal reliability is being consistent in words and actions. You know who you are and who you are not. They are true to themselves. They don't behave in a way that is contrary to their core principles and beliefs. Okay, so that's the internal. And if you do that and being recognized in that, in the United States, our participants, 43% of our participants said the boss is always true to themselves. 44% said sometimes. And 13% rarely or never. And this is where I'd make a joke. Apparently those 13% need to be fired quickly because they're probably not keeping people to begin with. All right. When a leader is honest and trustworthy with others, employers are 10 times more likely to be satisfied with their job. Okay. Remember, 50% of people who leave their job say they leave because of the manager. And when a leader is rarely or never honest with themselves, when they don't know who they are and they don't portray it, 54% of employees are looking for a new job within a year. So if you're in an organization with high turnover, is it the pay or is it the manager? Can you quantify it or qualify it? What is the aspect that you're dealing with when you're asking those kind of questions? This is where I would stop and ask if there are any questions, but we're not going to do that. We're going to move on from there. Okay, so we can come back and review some of this stuff. Here's what the 4 key findings were. First and foremost, sincere appreciation and praise are essential for any manager to be effective. Employees demand leaders who can admit when they are wrong. That also is a real key that we need to be looking at. Honesty and integrity and action drive engagement. If we're honest and have the integrity, our people will follow. And finally, effective leaders truly listen to and value their employees' opinions. Okay? If you don't feel comfortable walking into your boss and talking, or if your employees don't feel comfortable walking in and talking to you, then there is an issue that needs to be dealt with. All right? So, I don't know how many of you are familiar with the Johari window. The Johari window what came about in 1955. And its design is to kind of figure out where you are on certain things. And so we're going to go over this real quick and then get into, I'll make you do something. Or probably not, but we don't know yet. The first part is that you know yourself and others know certain things about you. It's known to both of and others. That's open. That's when you're open, you understand yourself, your people understand who you are, and they love you for it. Okay? Then there are things that are hidden. They're known to you, but not to others. Those are those deep, dark secrets that we really don't want to talk about. Okay, that's the unknown continent. That's where we'll go and explore. Then there are things that you don't realize you do, and neither do the other people. And or qualities that you have, you don't realize they're there, and others don't either. That's the unknown area. That's an open area for you to explore and find new aspects. The blind spots, which is what we're finally getting to here, is you're not aware of them. They're unknown to you, but other people see it. That's your blind spot. That's a leadership blind spot. If other people see it and you don't see it, that's your blind spot. That's the area where we need That's what we're talking about when we say we got to get better. That's the aspect of where we need to go next. Okay. That's your key. That's what we're focusing on for the rest of our time together. Okay. Knowledge is in power until it's applied. How am I doing on time, Hayden? Good. Knowledge is in power until it's applied, which challenges us that we have to each and every day be looking for new ideas and new ways of dealing with things to make it work. That's the end of the information. Now I'd like to turn this into a little bit of a Q&A so that you guys have an opportunity to talk. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen because you've had enough of this. We can come back to it if you'd like, but here we are. So I asked you for a couple of questions. Everybody can come off mute or you can utilize the chat. What's one characteristic that if you thought back at an effective manager or an effective leader, what's one characteristic that you admired in that manager and helped motivate you? Don't be ashamed. Don't be afraid now.
I'll start, David. I had someone that everything we did, we worked for a nonprofit, and everything we did, any type of meeting or something, should always take me along and say, you know, I'm doing this because I want you to learn. You know, we are doing this together because I want you to learn. And
right.
That meant a lot that, you know, she would take me along to do things so I could meet certain people and be able to progress in my career.
Yeah, I use it to say it's the purpose aspect of it. There must be a purpose in everything that we do. Okay, when it comes to business. Okay, salespeople just don't go out and make calls. There has to be a reason why they're picking that person or that person. So I like that aspect of it, and that can certainly help you in motivating from there. Joseph says constructive criticism. Oh, here they all come. Wow, we just opened those floodgates. Constructive criticism. Joseph, I don't know whether you've got audio or not, but could you explain to me what you meant by constructive criticism?
You hear me okay?
I can.
Well, I've had some on both ends of it. You know, obviously in my college days when I worked for a retail store, the criticism was never constructive. It was,
no,
you're doing this incorrectly, but there was never a direction on how it was done.
Right.
In my current, I work for All-In Credit Union. In the current spectrum, I've come to, of course, I think it comes with maturity too, how we accept the criticism.
Right.
I've come to understand that if somebody disagrees with a solution or, you know, kind of alters a solution I may bring, they're not necessarily criticizing. They're just bringing in their knowledge that they've had, that surpasses mine.
Right.
So just the constructive criticism and keeping it, you know, phenomenal job, but let's maybe tweak this a little bit. I like what you did there, but let's that's kind of how I've, you know, it kind of comes with my age and with others.
Yeah. Good. All right. Let's see. Marcia, you said openly sharing of information. What is it? If you can come off mute, if you have it, what does that mean? Guys thought I was just gonna. Are you there? Did she go hide?
Hello?
Hello?
Can you hear me?
I can.
Okay, good. Openly sharing of information, just anything that's related to the organization as it comes in, specifically any tips or tricks of the trade, so to speak, not being afraid to share resources on how to learn and how to grow within a position.
Yep.
I've for, in my opinion, good leaders and bad leaders. The bad leaders seem to be afraid to share those resources.
Yes.
For whatever reason, and just wanted to be the only one to know that information.
Yeah.
And I've also worked for leaders who openly, you know, said, check out this article, or this is another networking opportunity for you. And these are the numbers of the organization in general and what our business model is and how we want to grow as an organization.
Yeah. Don't you just love those guys that walk in and go, surprise, you have to do this now, instead of explaining it all out. All right. Good for you. Good. And how did that motivate you?
In my situation, it created a drive to want to learn more
Okay.
and to stay with that organization longer. I felt like I was more dedicated,
Yeah.
not only to that manager, to that leader, but to the company.
Yeah. And see that
it made me happy to work for that organization.
right. So that's where we're really heading with this, and that's a great example to kind of hold up, is that if we trust and feel good about our manager, we're more than likely to stay. Okay. And it's not going to be one of these things where you're constantly looking for the next job or the next job or the next job. It has that aspect to it that's so important. I don't know who Dunbarton is. Well, I know who Dunbarton is, but whoever is at Dunbarton, leaders that show compassion and concern for their employees. Can you make that? Can you give us a little bit more on that? Oh, there we go. No mic. Boy, you're a fast typer too, Dunbarton. I have fat thumbs. Texting for me is a physical challenge. Yeah, you're right. It's making people feel that they're part of it. That's that culture aspect that we talk about a lot, that it's important that we build that culture that will have us all feeling that we really want to get involved. Tabitha, you've got encourage continued learning and not being complacent. Also cross-training so you better understand what the others are responsible for. Can you elaborate a little bit on that, or are you there? She could be typing. Oh, are you typing, Tab? I can see you, Tabitha. Are you typing? I don't know. All right. Any other final thoughts on this before we move to the next question? Oh, I like that. Dean said, also think about flipping this question on its head. What can employees do to bring out the best in their leaders? Well, that's not true, Dean. You have all the answers. I know that. That's why we have you here. And that's what managers do. They have all the answers. We know all that stuff. That's the way. Yeah. Hayden says you know everything, so that's the way it goes. But you're right. What we need to be doing as coworkers and employees is we need to. This is an opportunity to manage up. And really, if you have an honest relationship with your boss and you're not living in fear, really saying to them that here's a change or here's something that I'm not clear on. Asking questions is always best. If you have a concern about something, always ask a question, because that's a way for you to get your manager to understand. And you're absolutely right, Dean. Managers are constantly learning. It's when I say that they know everything, it's always said with a wink and a nudge, because it's not true. Having been a manager myself, you end up in that thing where you go, I really don't know what's going to happen next, and you have to figure it out from there. So let's go to the next question that I asked and see what we can come up with this one now. Those were some great answers. Thank you all very much for that. Let's see where we can go next, and that's to say, okay, who was an ineffective manager? Who was somebody who didn't do the things that these managers did? What was an ineffective manager? What did you see in an ineffective manager? For me, it was always somebody who was liked to yell at people. To get back to what was said earlier, I had a manager, an owner of a radio station, that was quick to tell me everything that I did wrong, and very rarely told me that I was doing something right. But that was his, I mean, you understood that it was his style, but it made it very uncomfortable, and you really didn't want to be there, but you didn't know where to go next. And when you're first starting out in a business, and that actually helped motivate me, because then when I got into a job where they were telling me I had two senior managers that were telling me different things to do as a middle manager, and I went, I'm not going to put up with this anymore. So there's that kind of a thing. So what are some things that we have there. I've got Joseph is saying taking a private matter between one employee and the supervisor and making it public to the rest of the team. Yeah, that's always a good one, isn't it? Yeah, yeah. Someone else. You're right, Dean. I think that's especially your fully engaged employees. They really do want to be trusted to do their job. And we have a responsibility as managers and leaders to be sure that work is done and it is done right. And we have to, that's our challenge as a manager, to figure out ways to balance that both. The biggest challenge that managers have is balancing people skills with management skills. And management skills are those things that make the job get done, that the paperwork is turned in, that the performance reviews are done. That's the paperwork side of it. That's the management side of it. The leadership side is, how do I give the right kind of appreciation? How do I portray myself? How do I look for other people? Sitting back and not trying to learn how to help. That's right. I did that for years. Now it's your turn to do it. And you have to take that coaching role. I prefer that over teaching role. It's a coaching role. You have to let them go out and make mistakes. Don't get me wrong. A mistake is important, but what we really want to do is where can we take it next from there? That's a good one. Thank you, Dunbarton. Someone else? Nobody wants to talk to Dave. So here's the next question, because we've got what, an hour? Yeah. So in our final moments together, I know we went through a lot of information and covered a lot of stuff, but the big question for you now is, what was the most important thing that you found from today's seminar? What's one key point? Put that in the chat. And I promise I won't force you to explain it. That's a lie, but we'll go from there. What's one key thing that you found from today's session? Yeah. You're absolutely right. Bad managers can do that. You know, Marie, you say 88% just want to listen, but the other aspect of that is the aspect they just want to be appreciated. We used to have a thing where we would talk about what bosses think employees want and what employees really want, and the chart showed that bosses said the first thing that employees thought about was pay. But from an employee standpoint, it was just being heard was the number one thing they wanted on the job. And so you're absolutely right. Appreciation is key. They want to know that they're doing a good job. They want you to hear their opinions. And if it's a question or a concern, you have to act on it. You just can't say, well, yeah, I get that. You have to act on it, because they're going to keep an eye on you on that. Employees across the world want a lot of the same traits from management. That I think, when you look at this study and you look at how it's laid out, that is the most amazing thing in the world. It may not be the number one issue, but they're the same three issues that employees really hold in high regard. It's just a matter of how they do it. Yeah, that is mind-blowing, Joseph, that we look for that employees come into a job and immediately start looking for a new one. And you know, I can sit there and say, well, you know, it's because they find a better paying job. That's not necessarily true. They get into the job and they suddenly discover that the boss is not keeping up to what they expected, or the expectations that they got about the job. I refer to that as the steps to disengage employees. I've done a presentation where we talk about, you know, you do everything. You know, when you hire somebody, you're selling them on the company as much as they're selling the company on why you should hire them. And you get into that point and you sit there and you go, this is not what I expected. And then you sort of go through a grief curve where you suddenly realize this was a huge mistake. But yes, that's what the studies are showing. And again, it's important to understand that it's not just our study. All of the studies show those kind of things. Somebody else with any final comments? Go ahead and put them in the chat.
Hey, going forward, especially after COVID and getting back, do you think that managers and supervisors should be more flexible with those, with people and be able to work from home and, you know, versus being able to work in the office? And where do you see that going?
I think with the material that I'm reading on that, because I've been an at-home employee now for 13, 14 years, and I'm so lonely. That's why I love these things, because I just want to give you all a virtual hug. I'm reading some things where major companies right now are reevaluating the work at home, because there was that time when that was the thing. Everybody was going to work from home. There was going to be telecommuting and everybody was doing it. And then all of a sudden it halted and people turned around and said, no, we're not telecommuting anymore. You're coming into the office. And what we're, I just saw that.
I don't want to work from home.
I just saw that. Oh, come on, Dean. Here's what I'm seeing though, is companies now are reevaluating that, especially companies that are leasing high-end buildings. There's talk. Nielsen, which is down in New York City, is literally looking at abandoning their office space because they're getting more done at home and giving them that option. I think it's going to depend on the business, and I think it's going to depend on the employee and the manager. If they're not, the new standard is managers are going to have to understand how to do things virtually. The days of just gathering everybody in a conference room is pretty much over. So we have to move to that aspect of it now and realize that there's going to be, and I always joke, we're the poster child for an extended offices, because there's no central office for Emerald Coast Dale Carnegie. We're all over the place, and 9 times out of 10 we're either on a conference call or we're doing Zoom or some other communications thing. And I think that's going to continue. I think there are managers that are very comfortable with it and are going to move forward. And if you can get more work out of your employees by letting them work at home, why would you not? So.
And then Tabitha had a chat.
Where are you, Tabitha?
Question.
Can you speak to how to actively try to retrain a bad manager, or you just cut your losses? Ooh. Well, you can enroll them in a Dale Carnegie course. We now offer both in-person and online training for your people, so you can do it that way, Tabitha. That's usually, if you refer to them as a bad manager and they're not willing to change, then they're worth cutting loose. If they understand that they need to get better and they buy into that, then I would give them a reasonable amount of time. I always get in trouble. We have a very unscientific, scientific way to determine what the level of your employees are, as far as being, competent, not competent, but having potential, or not competent. And if you rank them as not competent in what they do and not competent in replacing you, then the question that's actually in the manual for instructors is, why do you keep them? So it's a matter of, let me put this another way. There is a thing called self-destructive behavior. And that's that behavior that you see that somebody's doing that is not part of the job, or it's not responsible, or it's not correct behavior. If you do nothing to change it, you as the next in line, either the boss or a coworker, you're as guilty of that behavior as if you had done it yourself. And it comes back to that. If you have people who are losing a lot of people or productivity is down, the sad part about it is the first thing you have to look at is the middle manager. And having been a middle manager, I hate saying that, but that's the reality. Why are they failing? Especially if they were doing so well. Did you promote somebody who was an outstanding employee at the job they did and say you can do the whole job now? In sales area departments, they don't train salespeople to be managers. They only train salespeople to be salespeople, and then they promote them to managers, and they don't understand why they fail. So yeah, I would first look and see, can you retrain them? Can you give them some information? Call me, we can talk. If you can't, then you've got to let them go. If their attitude isn't there, you're hurting an entire department, and that's not a good thing. That's usually when a company sometimes brings somebody from outside the company to take over the job. Any others? Roxanne, thank you for the kind words. Dean, I appreciate that. I will be forwarding to forwarding a white paper or a guidebook to Hayden to distribute to all of you who registered for this. That is called, that has more information. Here it is. Ta-da! That has more information than we covered in our 45-hour hour together, and has some other, gets a little bit more in depth on that. If you have any other questions, I'm on the membership roll, so you can find me there, and you're part of my home away from home. So we would be more than happy for you to come and for me to meet with you. We can either do it on Zoom or we can do it this way. I think I read the other day that this is a kickoff for a series of Wednesday meetings. I'm sorry I had to be first. It either raises the bar or your expectations are lowered, one or the other, depending on how you look at this. And Dean says, just a hand up, Dean says, let us know if there are any topics you might want covered. Thank you for participating. And if you like this one, I am available for birthdays. Anyway, thank you all very much for your time. I appreciate it. I hope it was worth your time and effort. And if I can be of any additional assistance to you, make Hayden give you my information. Thank you so much.
Thank you, David.
So I'm going to work on sending out an email with this replay, and I'll add the attachment that David's going to send, and also his contact information. So thank you guys for being a part of this. We really do appreciate it, and thank you for your membership.
Thank you.